This is just for my individual and organizational leadership class about managers and leaders and kind of how it relates to interacting with people. So first, could you just talk a little bit about your leadership experience, the roles you've held, the positions you've been in, and small story about how you came into those roles?
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe since I've been in an educational environment, a lot of leadership has been leading student teams, which is always super fun. And also, in a sense, it's leading volunteers. And so, which is different from, let's say, leading a corporate team where, they're getting a paycheck. So motivating students, motivating volunteers versus motivating an adult paid employees is very different. You have to use kind of different approach. And also a lot of the leadership has been international. And ORU is a very international school, so it's been a lot of actually international. So I think the leadership experiences I've had have been very diverse, very different from your typical corporate experience. But I've been able to work across a lot of different cultures and contexts, which has really been a great experience, great learning with leadership.
That's really good. This will be a unique perspective because I think most of the interviews will be more corporate in style, but you have a unique perspective with students. So lead me through kind of your decision-making process, like how you take into account how your decisions impact others, and I guess in this case, students.
Well, I'd say, that question, to me, it doesn't matter whether it's a paid employee, volunteer, student, doesn't matter. I usually take more of kind of a human-centered design approach and do the best I can to understand the person, the context, their goals, what motivates them. And sometimes that's from just getting a feel for the person. Sometimes it's being intentional, asking them questions, trying to understand. But I'd have to say that's where I start.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, a lot of what we've talked about early on is how everybody's different, and managing or bringing together different people is, you got to start with each individual person. And so with that, is there a type of personality that you can pick out of somebody individually that makes a good team member or a coworker or subordinate, somebody with a specific personality that you like working with?
I wouldn't say personality, but I love a quote. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's by John Wooden. Do you remember who John Wooden is?
I recognize it.
He's the most winning basketball coach in history. I think actually any coach. No one's won as many championships, and he coached UCLA college basketball team, men's basketball team for many years, and I think he had like 10 plus 11 championships. Some may have been more. Anyway, the guy was just a phenomenal leadership guy, and has written some books. And one of his quotes was something like, the main thing that he wanted his players to bring was their attitude. He's like, we can teach you everything else, but you need to come here with a positive attitude. And so you're asking me a question about personality, and I'm like, personality doesn't matter as much to me. It's really attitude. That's what really determines, is this person going to be a successful team member? Are they going to be a great follower, great leader? So I'd really pin down attitude as one of those key characteristics.
Okay, that's good. So someone coming in to work with you with the right attitude, do you have any motivational strategies that you use to get people excited about the work that you have for them?
Yeah, let me give you maybe two examples. One is what I already mentioned. It's just understand what their goals are. What motivates them? What gets them excited in it? And it just, again, kind of takes you getting to know somebody versus just like giving them tasks. And the other is, related, is I, as often as possible, do not want to put somebody in a role or a position that isn't a good fit for them. So, I mean, so one thing is more of like motivation, what really gets someone excited. The other is what's a good match for their skill set. So I'd say I'm looking at both motivation and competency.
Okay.
And what is their skill set or competency? So you might have a certain skill set or competency, but there are other things that motivate you. It might be like a fun environment, or with volunteers, it's not money because they're not making money.
Yeah.
But if it's in a corporate environment, maybe someone is very financially, so maybe it's financial rewards that motivate them the most. And that's regardless of whatever skills they have. So I'm looking at both skill, competency, but also that more of that intrinsic motivation. What really gets them excited?
Okay. You just mentioned fun. I have a question kind of along that line. Is there an appropriate amount of fun to have when working in a team? Maybe, I don't know how to describe this here, but if it's a very serious project or an organization that you're working with, is there an appropriate amount of fun you can have with your coworkers or in an organization that's really not the purpose of being there?
Well, yeah, I think you should have as much fun as you can. Okay. But I mean, the idea of fun is different for everyone. I mean, something that's fun to a group of students is probably not very fun, may not be very fun for a group of adults, or a group of engineers. What's fun to them versus accountants versus marketing, a marketing team is going to be very different. And then, I mean, the nature of the company, accounting firm versus creative agency. I mean, it has to be culturally appropriate. But I mean, good. If you've seen, I don't know if you've seen statistics, but I mean, the statistics for I don't know if it's like 2/3 or more, 70-80% of people are like not motivated at the workplace. They don't like their job that much. I mean, it's a huge percentage of people that are doing something they don't really enjoy. Doesn't help with motivation.
Yeah. I appreciate you tying kind of all these questions together. It's making for a very cohesive response to all the questions. I like that. Right. So, couple more. How do you define success for a team, or do you have a range of things that you consider a success, or is it just very individual for every person or group?
Yeah, that's a good, I mean, the corporate environment usually have very clear metrics, very clear goals, and you're, determining success based on whether you reach those goals or not. I mean, it's usually pretty clear cut. However, I think really good managers or leaders are also interested in developing people. So it's not just about this, like a Machiavellian approach to achieving a goal at all costs and at the expense of people, using people basically. It's a dual, you're looking at success. Did we meet our objectives, meet our goals? But as a manager or leader, I'd also be interested, am I developing people? Am I seeing people get better? As our people get better, our organization should get better. So I'd be looking at those two areas when I define success.
Okay. What is a piece of advice or a couple pieces of advice that you like to give people that are growing in leadership or are leading a team for the first time? Any couple pieces of advice that you're giving?
Well, one thing I like to talk about is emotional intelligence, and studies show that emotional intelligence is more important than IQ. So, I mean, the smartest person isn't the best leader, but someone who is aware of themselves, aware of others, can manage themselves, manage others, is going to be statistically a better leader than someone who's just has a really high IQ. So growing in emotional intelligence is certainly something that I like to highlight. And then maybe one other one would be just being really transparent with those you're leading, and caring about others. Maybe that's 3. I mean, everyone's probably heard of, people don't know, they don't care what you know until they know that you care. And so you can be a really smart person and have a great vision and strategy, but if you're not taking care of people and your team knows that you don't really take the time to get to know them or care about them, there's only so far your influence is going to go. I mean, maybe they're motivated out of money and it's not the most cohesive team, but really caring about others and treating others well is going to be very, very important as emotional intelligence. And then I forgot my 3rd point, but there's 2 of them. So
No worries.
I mentioned being transparent.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just being honest with your team, upfront with your team, admitting failure when you fail. So those are a few things.
All right, last thing, and I don't know if this is something you can share or I don't know how you'll approach this, but do you have a favorite leadership, management, or like teamwork moment that you've been a part of?
Moment?
Moments like an employee or a student really came through with something and you saw the development in somebody, or you achieved a really high goal. Is there anything along those lines that you have a story you could share?
Man, I mean, I don't know that I can think of one case, but I would say I've learned from Jim Stovall the importance of writing thank you cards and making sure I follow up and tell people thank you, which I did practice to some extent, but I've really learned to be even more intentional and do much better from Jim. The reason I share that is I can remember, a number of students over the years writing me thank you cards. And a lot of times I've realized I don't even know the impact that I'm having on people until they tell you. And so I guess maybe just the one story, story of stories would be around receiving notes from people that I've led and expressing how I've impacted them or being part of whatever we're doing at Impact.